Miss Neville.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna miss you when I go to 7th grade.
Oh, I'll miss you too, Emma. That's very sweet. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. Here we go. In our notes, let's write down Introduction to the Protist Kingdom. Introduction to the Protist Kingdom. If you can't see my screen yet, just give it a second. And please remember that this lesson is being recorded in the event that you get kicked out or if you have some issues with your technology. When we're talking about the Protist Kingdom, the first question we're really going to want to answer here is, what is a protist? I almost spelled that incorrectly. P-R-O-T-I-S-T. We want to know that a protist, for our purposes as 6th grade scientists, are any single-celled organisms. A protist is any single-celled organism. We want to remember that an organism is a living thing. And so today we're going to start talking about cells. We're going to use our colors to draw some pictures of cells to make sure that we understand that. So when we're talking about a cell, let's draw our first picture. It's important for us to know that there are two types of cells. There is the animal cell and the plant cell. It's going to be important that you're using some of the same colors as me as best you can. The animal cell is a circular cell. Okay. I'll move that up so you can see it. Perfect. That animal cell is a circular cell. It has some important organelles or structures inside of it to help that cell to function. It has a nucleus, and we'll label it in a second. It has a mitochondrion. I just drew a circular, looks like a Mike and Ike, okay, and I have a little squiggly line going in between it. And it also has something important called a vacuole. And so we want to draw our vacuole there as well. What color should I use? There's tiny little vacuoles here throughout the cell. And inside that cell is filled with a jelly called cytoplasm. And so I'm going to color the inside of my cell completely yellow. Don't color over those structures. Those structures are almost floating inside of this cytoplasm. Okay. And now let's go back and label these structures or organelles. These pink structures here are known as vacuoles. Okay, we'll talk about what a vacuole is in a minute. The purple structure here is our nucleus. And the blue structure here is something called our mitochondrion. Be sure to spell these words correctly, just as Miss Neville is. And of course, that jelly-like stuff inside, that jelly is called cytoplasm. I'll move that up for you. Uh-oh, sorry. Here we go. And the outside of this structure is known as the cell membrane. And we'll talk about what all of these are, what the job of all of these organelles are in a moment. The plant cell is more rectangular than the animal cell. And it has some of the very same structures that we find in that animal cell, but it also has some different structures. That's because, remember, plants and animals eat differently. Plants are autotrophic. That means they're able to make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. And animals are heterotrophic. That means they must go and find food from outside of their bodies. So when we're talking about the plant cell here, we're going to draw a green circular rectangular box here, okay? Inside of there, we're going to have that orange lining. This is our cell membrane, just like we find in that animal cell. We're then going to find a nucleus, just like we had in that animal cell. Notice how I'm drawing those structures the same color, okay? The nucleus is purple here in the animal cell. It's also going to be purple in our plant cell. The plant cell will also have mitochondrion. You'll see that it has that cell membrane, that orange lining. And it will also have a vacuole, even though a vacuole in a plant cell is much larger. So let's go ahead and label these. And then we'll color in well, actually, I want to color it first. And the plant cell will also have cytoplasm. Oh, how could I forget a very important structure inside the plant cell? Chloroplasts. We're going to find chloroplasts inside of the plant cell. And we won't find those in the animal cell. Remember, because the job of the chloroplast is to absorb sunlight. Okay, so we're going to color around this as best we can. Perhaps you can do a better job of it than Ms. Neville's doing. Okay. And now let's label each of these structures. This larger structure here is called the vacuole. These green structures here are known as the chloroplast. Couldn't get that all on one line. The blue structure here is the mitochondrion. Our purple structure here, just like in our plant cell, I'll move my hand in a minute, guys, is the nucleus. That yellow jelly-like stuff that our organelles are floating in, remember that's called cytoplasm. That orange structure here is our cell membrane. I actually could have just drawn it there. That's our cell membrane. And that green structure is kind of rigid, rubbery, a rigid, rubbery structure. This is called the cell wall. And we won't find this in the animal cell. This is unique to the plant cell. Please take some time to finish labeling this now. Uh-oh, sorry, y'all. What we'll find here is that each of these cells are filled with these organelles. And we want to make sure we know that each cell, in our notes, tick mark, each cell is filled with organelles or structures to help the cell work.
Miss Neville, can you scoot it back up a little bit, please? Thank you.
So it's important for us to know remember, this lesson is being recorded, so if you don't get everything, just skip some room and you'll go back and watch it to get your notes fully. So it's important that we know, especially as 7th grade science students, something called cell theory. And cell theory is the theory that all organisms or living things are made up of cells. So you and I are made up of cells, specialized cells as well. Yes, there are special cells that make up my eye. Those cells are different from the cells that make up my skin. Those cells are different than the cells that make up my bones and teeth. So it's important for us to understand that cell theory tells us that all organisms are made up of cells. Okay? So when we're looking here, it's important for us to know that the organelles, and we're going to list them, the organelles found in the animal cell, and you'll have to be able to tell me this later on, the organelles found in the animal cell are the nucleus, the cytoplasm. If you want to in your notes, you might want to skip a line between each of these as we're going to write what they are beside them in a second. The nucleus, the cytoplasm, the mitochondrion, the vacuole. I'll move this up. There we go. And the cell membrane. So let's discuss what the job of each of these structures are. We want to remind ourselves that that nucleus is what we drew blue, okay? And the job of the nucleus, it's the control center or the brain of our cell. It makes sure that all of the other organelles are successfully doing their jobs. We want to remember the cytoplasm. That was that yellow jelly that we filled in all of our cells with. The job of the cytoplasm, it's the jelly that all the organisms or all organelles float in. It fills the cell completely. The mitochondrion, you want to remember, we drew that. Blue with our squiggle between it. The mitochondrion, I like to think of it as, for sixth grade purposes, as the battery or the powerhouse of the cell. The mitochondrion is where respiration happens. Remember, respiration is where the cell is able to make energy from the food that it gets. So the mitochondrion, this is where respiration takes place. And this is the battery of the cell. This gives the cell the power to eat, to turn its food into energy, okay, to store or get rid of food and waste. If we didn't have that mitochondrion there, our cell wouldn't necessarily be alive. We want to remember that our vacuole, it's very small in the animal cell because the animal cell doesn't need to store food because it's always taking in food. The plant cell's vacuole, remember from your picture, it's much larger. And the reason why is because that vacuole, the job of that vacuole is to store food and water. And sometimes it stores waste as well. So the poop of the cell, for lack of a better term, that's going to be stored there in the vacuole. You're going to find that the vacuole of the animal cell is much smaller than the vacuole of the plant cell. And then finally, we have our cell membrane. You'll want to remember that that cell membrane was the orange lining that was surrounded the entire cell. The cell membrane, if we were to take a microscope and focus in on what that cell membrane looks like, it looks like a sponge, a lining of sponge here. Okay. We want to remember that the cell membrane is very spongy. It's the spongy outer covering that allows good stuff like food and water to come into the cell. That up. And it allows bad stuff like waste, stuff that if it stayed in the cell, it could kill the cell, okay, to go out. You're going to see those little holes there. We call those our pores.
Miss Neville,
Yes,
does that say covering?
yes. Tomorrow, what we're going to start to discuss are the organelles that are found in the plant cell. we'll start discussing the organelles that are found in the plant cell. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Remember today's assignment that you're going to be completing. Today's assignment that you're going to be completing is going to have a lot to do with your fungi. And so it's going to be important